Hello friends, a very warm welcome to Ansarkari. I am Vikas Bhardwaj. Continuing in understanding different contributions given by Weber as far as a standing pillar and also a great contributor to the future thought as far as different theories you can say in sociology is concerned, we are dealing with rationalization. It's a very important topic because it is not directly helping us to understand not only uh, what Weber was saying as a thinker, but also applicability of this topic in the rest of the topics which are coming up in the paper one indirectly. And it is also helping you to correlate and also keep on thinking how it is happening in India, what kind of system is there in India, and how you can relate it with the West. So let's start rationalization. Very important rationalization. So rationalization lies at the heart of Weber's substantive sociology. You can always get a comment type question on this. So very important to understand sociological vocabulary. So as Kalberg put it, it is this case that Weber's interest in a broad and overarching theme, the specific and peculiar rationalism of the Western culture and its unique origins and development, that is at the center of substantive sociology or Weber's understanding. So theme is very broad when we say, but then within this theme, he is looking forward to a very specific and a particular or peculiar kind of rationalization or rationalism, which is visible and which have evolved of in Western culture in the Western world. And he is focusing upon its unique origin and development. That is what you have to understand. It is not a generalized way. But can we exactly give definition to rationalization according to Weber? No, we can't because he is operating with a number of definitions and he is also failing to specify which definition he was using in which particular context or in which discussion. So you can't specify up to that level, but still it is a broad theme, but he is looking from the perspective of a specific and peculiar rationalism. That is what you have to write down in your notes. So the point is that Weber defining rationality, obviously he differentiated between two types, that is means and rationality, that is number one, value rationality, that is number two. But these two concepts, that is value rationality and means and rationality, these two concepts refers to what kind of social action is happening. They are actually forming the foundation and the basis of Weber's large-scale sense of rationalization. As we are seeing, as we have seen previously also, he is studying large structures, but and he is studying them individually or at the micro level, but in a very methodical and in a very, very peculiar scientific way. So Weber was interested in far more than fragmented actions and orientation. He was interested far more than. He is looking forward to something concrete, identifying those regular repeating patterns within the big chaos within the civilizations, organizations, institutions, organizations, data classes and groups. So I believe we are repeating this point, but then you have to understand this is at the core of what Weber's contribution is. Donald Levine argued that Weber was interested in objectified rationality, that is action that is in accord with some process of external systematization. I hope you will agree with this because as we have already discussed in our previous lectures where we are talking about authority, we are talking about structure, we are talking about charisma, we are talking about that how Weber is actually delineating and understanding and decoding the process and then whole systematic approach he is presenting up. So Karl performed a very useful service by identifying four basic types of rationality in Weber's work. We will see to that. And Levine offered a very similar differentiation, but then we will be seeing into it. These types of rationality, wo kya hai? They are the basic heuristic tools. Again, very, very important from the examination perspective, where if you, even if you mention it clearly at the right point, what are actually what these rationality are actually, they are the heuristic tools. They are the tools employed. They are the tools to employed to scrutinize the historical fates of rationalization as socio-cultural processes. So these are the tools to scrutinize, to understand, and these social cultural processes which he is actually undertaking as a study, they are very, very important. They are the reflection of society. So that is what you must in fact note it down clearly, the last two sentences, and then try to, when you are revising your notes, you have to remember them in such a way that you are able to bring it into your answers directly or indirectly. So the types of rationality, let's see. The first type is practical rationality, which is defined by Kalberg as every way of life that views and judges world activity in relation to the individual's purely pragmatic and egoistic interests. We see this kind of rationality in everyday life in India. Every way of life that views and judges worldly activity in relation to the individual's purely pragmatic and egoistic interests. Look forward to, the kind of local markets are there in North India. In North India, also in Haryana. In Haryana, also like you can look in Himachal Pradesh, and then you look forward to Uttarakhand, and then you look forward to, say, for example, if you go to East India, then Bihar, Odisha, everywhere. Every society is so rational in India. So I think way of life in India, even the celebration of festivals and even also food culture is based upon practical rationality. And then from practical rationality, it has emerged in a social phenomena. So people who practice practical rationality accept the given realities, here we are saying, and merely calculate the most expedient ways of dealing with the difficulties that they present. This type of rationality arose with severing of the bonds of the primitive magic, and it exists trans-civilizationally, obviously in more than one civilization, and trans-historically, that means throughout history, and it is not restricted to modern Occident. That means it is not actually a new phenomena. It is there in the Eastern civilizations also. It is there in the Western also. And then throughout the period, it has evolved. That is what he is saying. Now, this type of rationality stands in opposition to anything that threatens to transcend an everyday routine. If your everyday lifestyle, if your everyday work culture, if your everyday habits are being challenged, then people will not allow this. So this rationality stands in opposition to anything that is threatening to transcend, that is to cross everyday routine. It leads people to distrust all impractical values. That's another point, either religious or secular utopian. It is whether it is cultural, whether it is rational, as well as even theoretical rationality of the intellectuals. So the type of rationality to which now we will be turning from the practical rationality is theoretical rationality. Because theoretical rationality, that is number two rationality, it involves a cognitive effort to master reality through increasingly abstract concepts rather than through action. So, theoretical rationality, you are understanding any theoretical system through application of mind. There are abstract concepts, and then you are actually understanding them. So, it involves abstract cognitive processes such as logical deduction, induction, attribution of causality, and the like. So, this is theoretical rationality. So this type of rationality, when we can say, it will be accomplished in the early history by sorcerers. That means those who are, pujari, what the word we can say, ritualistic priests, by philosophers, judges, scientists. They all have reflected theoretical rationality. In case of India, we can give so many examples. Even Chanakya, even Aryabhat, even Shukraniti, or even, so many other examples are there. Even our great epics like Mahabharata and Ramayana, they will also reflect this element of theoretical rationality. So unlike practical rationality, theoretical rationality leads the actor to transcend daily realities in a quest to understand the world as a meaningful cosmos. That is what Ramayana and Mahabharata do. That is how we celebrate Dashera, how we celebrate Onam, why we celebrate Pongal, and so forth. So the practical rationality is also trans-civilizational and trans-historical, like the way Indian civilization is there, the Chinese civilization is there, then Arabic civilization will have its own element, and then Maya, Inca, and so forth, and going to the Africa also. So let's understand again that the effect of intellectual rationality, okay, intellectual rationality on action is limited. Why? Because intellectual rationality is involving cognitive processes. That means cognitive process is involved, cognitive thinking is involved. It may not be affecting the action taken. It may not be, need not. But it has the potential to introduce new patterns of actions. But those new patterns of actions, which are very important from a social perspective and to understand society, they are only indirectly important. Or you can say they are only introduced, new patterns of actions are introduced indirectly. But in substantive rationality, which is the key thing, it is similar to practical rationality and obviously different from theoretical rationality. Direct orders. It is directly orders action into patterns through clusters of values. So what is the keyword over here? That substantive rationality is actually directly ordering actions because that is what it is impacting and it is resulting into through clusters of values. So that means also that substantive rationality is involving choice of means to end. Choice of means to end. What do you want to do? Choice of means to end within context of system of values. Very, very important key line. You have to just mug it up. You have to just write it down and understand and imbibe it. So one value system is actually substantive, but it may not be more rational. That is, in terms of substantive rationality, one value system is also equally important like the another value system. That means substantive rationality had been existing trans-civilizationally. Different civilizations, whether you talk about ancient India, Indus Valley, or you, for example, Maya, Inca, Egyptian, Arab, whatever you speak about, somewhere at some point of time this was existing, and also trans-historically. But what is the other condition? Weber is saying that consistent value postulates. That means consistent things, consistent systems, they existed. Finally, and most important from the Kalberg's point of view is formal rationality, which means ends calculation. That's only you have to remember. So in practical rationality, this calculation occurs in reference to practical or pragmatic self-interest. In formal rationality, it occurs with reference to universally applied rules, laws, and regulations. That is what we have been trying to understand. As Brubaker puts it, common to the rationality of industrial capitalism, a keyword which I've used previously also, formalistic law, bureaucratic administration. What is common? What is common to the rationality of all these organizations or systems? It's objectified. They are very objective in nature. They are very systematic in approach. They are very much, if I use a common casual word, mechanical. So they are objectified, they are institutionalized, they are supra-individual form. That means they are reflecting individual elements, but they are reflecting it at a very big scale. So everything is miniatured, but everything is so perfect in each sphere. So rationality is embodied in the social structure and confronts individual as something external to them. Workers are working over there, definitely. Or even if I take another example, say for example, a kind of an office is being run. So it becomes so practical that individuals are actually part of it, but then they are part of the big social structure. This is where Weber is actually thinking of bureaucratic rationalization. That bureaucrats are integral part of it, but then bureaucracy is always bigger than bureaucrats. That's what we speak about always. So bureaucratic rationalization revolutionizes with technical means, agreed, as does every economic reorganization. Okay, so it first changes the material and social orders. And through material and social orders, it is changing people. That also we agree as far as economic or what I can say bureaucratic rationalization is concerned. It is going to change and challenge the conditions of adaptation. It is creating new opportunities for adaptation and through a rational determination of means to ends. Say, for example, digital public infrastructure of India. It is impersonal. It is creating a kind of a very systematic and a very smart structure. So all the types of rationality are trans-civilizational, epoch transcending. That means uh, their values can be seen over an era. Formal rationality arose only in the West with the coming of industrialization. That is what it is said by Weber. Because why? Because once industrialization came in England, a systematic system emerged, administrative system also changed, and economic system also got changed a lot. That is why the universally applied rules, laws, and regulations that characterize formal rationality in the West are found particularly in their economic, legal, and scientific institutions as well as in the bureaucratic form of domination. So think about Western countries. Think about Western parliamentary model. Think about their scientific, their research institutions. Think about when we speak about Ivy Leagues. That is what it is. So We have already encountered formal rationality in our discussion of rational legal authority and the bureaucracy. But the question arises that what we have discussed is little complex when you threadbare formal rationality, substantive rationality, or even intellectual rationality and so forth. So what Weber is actually trying to do, is it a really theory or is it not even complete when you see in a critical way? So Weber had a complex and multifaceted sense of rationalization. He used it most powerfully and meaningfully in the image of modern Western world. That's what we said, especially in the capitalistic economy and also in context of bureaucratic organizations. Like for example, we have discussed previously also iron cage of formulation structures. So Weber described capitalism and bureaucracy as two great rationalizing forces. So that is what we have to discuss. That is what we have to understand in our personal discussions also. When we think and see, is India also moving towards such way? Is India also making itself visible? If we see the Weber's theory that in India also capitalism and bureaucracy are the two great rationalizing forces, somewhere it is true, and we can discuss it further. So in fact, Weber saw capitalism and bureaucracies as being derived from the same basic source. What is that basic source? That is the inner worldly asceticism. That is what Weber was talking about. When we speak about religion, we will see it in details. It is involving similar rational and methodical action. That means a kind of a ritual and reinforcing one another in the process of furthering rationalization of Occident. That means Weber is trying to say that in the Western world, because of the kind of religious practice, because of the kind of moral and social values they were having, it actually facilitated the rise of capitalism. So capitalism facilitated the rise of bureaucracy, and bureaucracy facilitated the rise of capitalism, and both of them actually are derived or being derived from the inner worldly asceticism. Like in Hinduism we speak about other world, so Calvinism, a type, you can say a form of rationality, it speaks about inner worldly asceticism. Here, what you are doing, how you are living, what time you are getting up, what is your way of hard doing work, what time you are sleeping, what kind of values you are carrying. This is called inner worldly asceticism. So, in the Weber's view, only real rival to bureaucrat in technical expertise and factual knowledge was the capitalist. But let's see critically, if we are taking Weber at his word, it is difficult to argue that he had an overarching theory of rationalization. That is what you can write when we are speaking about what limitation you speak about Weber's theory of rationality, or what kind of what kind of constraint would you say. So he rejected the idea of great evolutionary sequence, or you can say general evolutionary sequence, that something happened and then after that only this happened and then that happened, like the way we speak out Darwin. So it is Weber is not going for this idea that you postulate something and then you are finding an idea. He was critical of thinkers like Hegel and Marx, who according to Weber offered general, so he is not giving general teleological theories of society. ऐसा होता है तो ऐसा होता है, ऐसा होगा. So he is not making any proclamations of the whole society. His focus is in turn on social structures. Again, I am repeating the same word. Social structures and institutions such as bureaucracy, stratification, and some elements are obviously part of the direct sociological options. That is why it becomes important. For example, stratification is there, and even bureaucracy is there, and then a spirit of capitalism and so forth is also there. So what we can say, that lacking a sense of the whole, he was unlikely to make global generalizations, especially about future directions. That is not what Weber had done. Rationalization process that Weber described in one social structure or institution was usually quite different from another social structure or institution. That is what, when it comes to critical analysis, that is what, when you're going to write in a comment answer, you can always bring it. Weber put it. The process of rationalization assumes unusually varied forms. His process of rendition is not same, not similar, not one way. It is unusually varied forms, and the history of rationalism shows development which by no means follows parallel lines in the development of life. That means something is happening, and that is because of this thing happened in life also. This thing happened in society also. No, that is not that. So Weber is not fan of the idea of predicting something like the way that this is happening, and this will lead to some other thing, and that thing will happen. So this being said, it is clear that Weber had a deep concern for overarching effect of the formal rationalization of the economy and bureaucracies on the Western world. He had a deep concern. For example, in economy and society, what Weber is saying, that the process of rationalization in the factory, and especially in the bureaucratic state machine, it parallels the centralization of material implements. Please read carefully. Okay, it is actually showcasing centralization of material implements of organization in the hands of master. System is important, organization is important, the discipline takes over ever larger areas in order to satisfy political and economic needs, and it is increasingly getting rationalized. So this universal phenomena more and more restricts the importance of charisma and individually differentiated conduct. So if once we have read Marx, certain elements are common over here. So he is saying that there is an effect of the formal rationalization of the economy and bureaucracy of the Western world. But what can be the basic characteristics of formal rationality? Let's see that. So Ritzer actually defined 6 terms of basic characteristics. Formally, rational structures, institutions, emphasizing calculability or the things which can be counted or quantified, focus on efficiency or finding the best means to a given end. Always keep in mind Indian bureaucrat at the back of your mind also. There is a great concern with ensuring predictability or that things operate in the same way from one time or place to another. A formally rational system reducing human technology, ultimately replacing human technology with non-human technology. Think about AI, think about digitization. No human technologies as computerized systems are viewed as more calculable, more efficient and more predictable than human technologies. So non-human technologies, they are viewed as more calculable that we see today and when Weber is writing more than 100 years ago. Similarly, formally rational system seeks to gain control over an array of uncertainties. Okay, uncertainties posed by human beings who work in or served by them. What can be, possible? The idea is to create such a system where loopholes and you can say inefficiencies can be reduced. That is what you have to write in the main answer also. That's what you are supposed to do with the other subjects also. So rational systems tends to have series of irrational consequences for the people involved with them and for the system themselves as well as for the larger society. What kind of irrational consequences? World tend to become less enchanted, less magical, ultimately less meaningful to people. Everything becomes mundane, monotonous, everything becomes so less creative. So formal rationality stands in contrast to all other types of rationality, but especially in conflict with substantive rationality. So formal rationality is very important, and Weber is putting it in conflict of substantive rationality. So Kalberg argued that Weber believed that conflict between these two types of rationality play a particular fateful role in unfolding the rationalization processes in the West. How West became such a powerful phenomena and a mechanism for, you can say, administration, bureaucracy, or even say advancement of markets and so forth. So Kalbach is saying that formal rationality, that's what we have read, but it is in conflict with the substantive rationality, and the churning of both led to actually uh, a very evolved form, or you can say development in bureaucracy or administration, or you can say way of life or capitalism in the West. Why? Because in addition to differentiating among the 4 types of rationality, Karlbach dealt with their capacity to introduce methodical way of life. That's what the word we have been using, that there has to be a process, there has to be a method. Practical rationality, we have already seen it is lacking this ability because it involves reaction to situations. It is very limited. It is not actually, practical rationality cannot always lead you to create something new. You cannot, by practical rationality, you cannot always create something new. You can always react to the situation because you are behaving practically. Theoretical rationality, as we already seen, it is cognitive, it is indirect, and it has got therefore it has got highly limited ability to suppress practical rationality and seem to be more an end product than a producer. So Weber always believed that substantive rationality was the only type with the potential to introduce methodical way of life. So a particular substantive rationality with an emphasis on methodical way of life, as we have said, Calvinism, when you Google it also, it subjugated practical rationality and led to development of formal rationality, which is leader actually. That is what how bureaucracy and capitalism is going to develop. So substantive rationality is leading to the development of formal rationality. Theoretical rationality and practical rationality, they are not actually playing such an important role. So Weber's fear was that this substantive rationality was becoming less and less significant than the other types of rationality, especially formal rationality in the West. So formal rationality is actually taking over. Bureaucrat is a formal rationalist. So according to Weber, along with the capitalists, they are going to dominate the West, or you can say wherever this process will be followed. And this is the key feature of Western civilization's highest ideals. The autonomous and free individual whose actions were given continuity by their reference to ultimate values was fading away. So, what actually Weber is trying to convey? Again, same thing, that any kind of aberration, any kind of creativity, any kind of different system, any kind of diversity will not be really appreciated. And that what he is studying Western world. When we say Western world, Germany, France, and obviously the United Kingdom, they are the models over here. So from that particular context we have to see, but from our examination perspective we have to see just only common key things, just only keywords, types of rationality, some keywords from Weber, and then we will try to apply in a very very simple words how it can be related with whatever is happening in India and according to the demand of the question. So thank you very much. Please go through it at least twice, note on the keywords so that we can also think rationally, and rationally from the perspective of the examination. So I leave with the idea that what kind of rationality do you think is fitted for writing UPSC exam? So this is a question to you, and we will be discussing these ideas in our personal discussions. Thank you very much.